Hello, I'm Elaine from Prima Consulting. Welcome to the webinar, The Next Era of Storytelling, Introducing Narratives for Qlik. Have you tried asking Siri to tell you a story? Siri often refuses, and if you're persistent, she'll tell you a story about a virtual galaxy far, far away. If you keep trying, you'll notice that Siri is only capable of recycling several pre-recorded answers. The creation of story still lies in the hands of the humans who created the script for Siri. Every time you ask Siri to tell you a story, it can only tell you the same story. So what is the next step in storytelling? Instead of telling you the same old story each time, the next step would be for artificial intelligence to generate stories, wouldn't it? So it needs to be intelligent, insightful, and intuitive. Introducing narratives for Qlik. Narratives for Qlik is an advanced natural language generation tool. It generates stories using your data. Narratives for Qlik is intelligent. It can surface the hidden insights within your visualization and accelerate time to understanding. Narratives for Qlik is insightful. It generates dynamic narratives as you interact with your visualization, so you can gain real-time insights. Narratives for Qlik is intuitive. It identifies relationships in data not obvious in your visualization alone to help you with your data discovery process. Let me show you. Some of you might have seen this shown briefly from our previous webinar on various extensions that you can add onto Qlik Sense. Here's the Qlik Sense dashboard on screen, and I already have Narratives extension installed. I'm going to show you how easy it is to generate a narrative. I'm already in edit mode, and under Custom Objects, I drag Narratives onto the screen and select the visualization that I want to write about. And very quickly, it will produce an impactful narrative on the most interesting thing about the data. The idea behind this product is to produce a domain and function agnostic narrative experience so that any user leveraging any dataset could derive value from the narratives. What is really exciting is that anybody in any function across the enterprise can leverage the narrative's content. I will show you there's a number of ways that you can customize the content, but the point of this domain and function agnostic product is that anybody using any dataset can leverage the narratives. Now I will drag in another narrative for the bar chart. Narratives is smart enough to know the type of stories that the user like to hear based on the type of charts we're looking at. Now that I've created the narratives for both a line chart and a bar chart, you notice that the content that is produced is very specific to that use case. In a line chart, users are basically looking at movement of data over continuous dimension like time, so the stories focus on trend lines and correlation analysis. On the other hand, when a user is writing about a bar chart, it is more interested into different clusters, different distributions in the data, so it's going to focus on a different suite of insights. Apart from line and bar charts, you can write different narratives about pie charts, compo charts, tree maps, and scatter plots. Each story will be very unique to this visualization. Now I'm going back to view mode. You notice that when I interact with the visualization to select WA only, the narrative is updated to reflect that. But the narrative is more powerful than that. The users, through the use of focus filters, is able to find out the top 3 highest ranking states or lowest ranking states by starting value, ending value, average value, median value, percentage change, absolute change, or volatility. I'm going to choose average value here. Now I have found out the worst performing states, which are Tasmania, WA and SA. So I can change it again, and this time I want to focus to see the top 3 highest ranking states based on percentage change. And it gives me Tasmania, Victoria and New South Wales. And immediately we get the answer to the thing that I'm most curious about. So without doing any analytics on my own, I can trust narratives to tell me the 3 states that are growing the most. So even though Tasmania has a very low sales value, it has been one of the biggest growing areas. So this is a great time saver. Now that I've got the text, I can copy and paste this to an email or put it into a story. If you've used Qlik Sense before, then you'll know how the story feature can be more powerful for presenting your data at a meeting than the PowerPoint. If you haven't, there's some good videos around storytelling feature from the Qlik website, so I won't go into the detail of this feature here. So this is the stories area, and I can paste this text. I can also add some other information if I want to, or I can highlight certain values or certain information here. Or you can use the snapshot features and put it in the story that way. However, the snapshot cannot be exported to PDF or PowerPoint because this is an extension object, whereas the plain text object can be exported, so be aware of that. Now that I'm going back to my sheets and show you that there are different ways that we can customize the content. I'm going back to edit mode. The first is the right-hand panel, where users can tailor and shape the narratives. The most obvious is the story format. Do you want bullet list or paragraph? Most users do prefer the bullet list format, so this is the default. Users can change the font size depending on the presentation venue. You can add titles or subtitles, and most importantly, you can update the verbosity. Verbosity is how much content you want to display as well as the complexity of it. You can decrease the verbosity if you want a punchy executive summary. Or you can increase the verbosity if you want to see more insights or even predictions. The second way to customize the narratives is to use this settings dial here. Within settings, there are 3 sub-areas where you can change the narratives. You can change the dimensions, you can change the measures, and you can change the narratives. With dimensions, we start with how do we describe this data? Are we looking at discrete data sets or continuous data sets? Narrative is smart enough to work out that if you're using a line chart, it is likely to be a continuous data set. Whereas if you're using a bar chart, it is likely to be a discrete data set. But here you can override this setting. Next, you can change the language. Because narratives try to be as generic as possible, time is referred to as periods, and other dimensions are referred to as entities. This is total sales by month, so we can change the periods to say month and months. We can also change the entity to say state and states. And you can add variation if you want to switch between saying months and periods. I'm going to save and close now so you can see the changes. Now the narrative says average sales is this much across 6 states and across all 12 months. I'm going back to the settings now. The next component for customization is how we are looking at values. So this is a chart about sales, so a larger value is good. If you're looking at costs, then a larger value is considered bad. We can specify this here so that the narrators can write it in a positive note when our sales go up. If we're looking at numbers, percentages, or money, we're going to describe them differently. If it is money, we have the option to specify the currency symbol. This is useful if you're a company that trades in many countries. I'm going to choose Australian dollars here. Finally, you have the ability to say if this is a cumulative amount or not. For this chart, I'm looking at total sales by month, but it's also useful to see how I'm doing for the whole year. So I'm going to choose cumulative. If the chart is already showing cumulative data, like your year-to-date chart, then you can use the last option. I'm going to save this again. Notice how it says total month was this much instead of average sales now. You may notice that some text is bold or black. So here in formatting, this is where you can specify how to highlight the good and bad changes. We can change this to green when it's good and red when it's bad. I'm going to save and close this again and see how it has changed now. Now for the more advanced feature, we have a sales versus budget chart here, and we can specify the relationship between the two data sets. At the moment, it's treating those two data sets as separate things. I'm going to the settings now and go into relationships and the measures. So if you have a chart that is about equipment cost compared to your total project cost, then you can choose this option portion. Or if you have a chart that is based on year data, then you can use this option here to say 2016 sales is 1 year prior to 2017 sales, for example. But for this chart, I'm comparing actual versus benchmark, so I will select to say that my budget is a benchmark for sales. And save and close. So you can now see how the text have changed to compare the two different measures. The next advanced feature is driver. I'm going to switch to another chart to show you because this feature is only available on a continuous dataset with single dimension. When you have built up many different measures in an app, then you can use this driver feature to review some insight that may not necessarily be represented in the visual. For example, we have an average sales and margin by month chart, and we can use this feature to see if the average sales is impacted by other measures. So I go into settings, under measures and driver, I'm going to select yes and say to see if my average sales could be impacted by customer count and cost. times increased, average sales decrease. But as costs increase, average sales increase based on data providers. So this is a very powerful feature to see how your different measures can be impacted by each other. The final advanced feature is the concept of analytics packages. For each visualization type, we have different sets of analytic packages. Here, the users can turn on and off these packages as well as rearrange the order of them so to give more importance on the correlation rather than the segments, for example. Within segments, you can set the threshold at which to produce content, or at which percentage to format that content, to highlight that content. Within trend lines, you can run the predictive analysis. For predictions, you need 30 data points, and then it can predict 10% into the future. Or if you have 30 months of data, it can predict to the next 3 months, and it uses a linear prediction model. So I've mentioned that there are different ways that users can interact with the narratives. So the first thing I showed you was the focus filters in view mode, and then the other two was in edit mode, where you can use the right-hand panel or the setting style. So this concludes my demo. So now you've seen how easy it is to add narratives to your dashboard. Time to try out yourself. Are you still asking why? Well, your company has implemented the BI tool like Qlik Sense, and your job has changed from spending time creating reports manually to analyzing the data in the dashboard. You now have a lot of charts to look at, and where do you start? Having the narratives can help you focus on the changes that you care about. Also, for many people, the spoken and written word is still how we best understand information. Data visualization is a powerful medium for revealing and communicating data facts, but it relies heavily on the viewer's ability to read, process, and understand what they're looking at. Having the narratives can help you find out correlations that are not obvious in the visualization. So narratives is intuitive, insightful, and intelligent. So a little bit more about narratives for Qlik. Narratives for Qlik is currently a Linux-based software built in CentOS or Red Hat. There are two deployment options. When you download the Narratives extension now, it is the hosted version, which means it is using web services to download the code from the cloud that generates the narratives. This option is currently free until April. The second is an on-premise option geared towards enterprise organizations. For the on-premise option, you can choose the premium version if you require more customized language. Some of the questions that have been asked before: what is on the product roadmap? Narrative Science is planning to support more chart types in the coming year and also adding foreign language translation. At the moment, it only writes in English. When new features are released, do I need to download the extension again? The new features of each product release will automatically appear the next time you use narratives for Qlik. There's no additional download necessary. How does narrative science protect client data? Customer data that is transmitted to and from the narrative science platform is encrypted over TLS 1.2 connections. Once uploaded, all data is encrypted at rest. Most importantly, narrative science does not warehouse customer data. All data uploaded to a system is securely deleted after a 2-week period. Does narratives for Qlik work with Qlik Sense Cloud? No, Qlik Sense Cloud currently does not support the use of custom extensions, so you can only use narratives with Qlik Sense Enterprise Server or Qlik Sense Desktop. How long does it take stories to write? Well, story generation time varies based on the amount of data you are sending to the narratives for Qlik service. In most cases, stories will be written in less than 1 second. A little bit about who we are. Prima Consulting was established in 1991. Our head office is in Melbourne, but we also have offices in Sydney, Brisbane and Perth. We are a Microsoft partner and Qlik partner. We have worked with many clients and industries, such as telecommunications, utilities, finance, and government. Here are some of our success stories. Thank you. This is the end of my presentation. But if you have any questions, please type it into the webinar dialog box and I'll see if I can answer some of them for you.
Thank you, Elaine, for the webinar. That was really good. It sounds like people will really benefit from this narrative science. It sounds like I will benefit from it. When I go into my meeting on Monday, I can just pull out my Qlik Sense dashboard and the narratives are there. I don't have to prepare anymore. It sounds like it. Okay, so if there's any questions for Elaine, please type into the box on the right-hand side, and then we'll be trying to answer any questions as much as possible today. So I have a question, Elaine. Right here it says, when is the language going to be supported for Chinese language?
At this stage, we don't have the date, but sometime in 2017 they said they will add in additional languages, but I don't know if Chinese is in 2017 release or not.
Okay. Do we need an additional server to run narrative science?
If you want to have the on-premise version, yes, you would need a Linux server to run it. But you can also have the hosted version, so that does not require a separate server.
Awesome. So you can basically run Qlik Sense and narrative on the same server?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got a question about how do we make the comments specific for our data sets. I guess this is already automatically making the comment specific to your data set. So if the language that is changing, apart from just the entity name or the dimension name, then you might need the on-premise version or the premium version even to customize some of the language that you want to use. The one that comes with the hosted version will be very generic usually, and the options that I showed you today are the ones that you can customize.
Okay, thanks for the question. Are there any other questions? If there's no other questions, we'll conclude the webinar for today. We just time, about 2 minutes to time. So if there's no other questions, we'll conclude it today. Again, thanks everyone for joining. The webinar will be made, the webinar recording will be made available after the webinar. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.